News Bites and Insights from the Council of Insurance Agents and Brokers. I'm Rob Boyce, Director of Market Intelligence and Insights here at the Council. I'm joined today by Josh Motta, founder and CEO of the Coalition, an MGA focused on cyber insurance and tech E&O. To start things off, let's talk about your background and your entry into the insurance world. Where did you first see the opportunity in the cyber insurance and tech E&O space?
Sure, yeah. In many respects, Coalition is really the culmination of everything I've done throughout my career. So I was fortunate to start off at a young age as a software engineer at Microsoft, and later worked for one of the U.S. intelligence services before leaving to actually go into the financial services with Goldman Sachs, which was sort of my first exposure into the management of risk and insurance techniques, although it wasn't traditionally insurance. And then more recently, I've really just been an entrepreneur. I've been building businesses, building technology companies, and what sort of struck me in each of those areas was how important technological risk, and particularly the management of technological risk, was to a modern corporation, right? I mean, the world has fundamentally changed. It took 68 years for 50 million people to use an airplane, whereas it took 9 minutes for 50 million people to use Pokemon Go, right? And so there's just been a lock shift in the way the world's changed, and yet the risks of using technology are growing. And frankly, the accepted solutions for those risks, which are largely technology-based, so cybersecurity, frankly, aren't up to the challenge. And as I took a step back and looked, across my career at sort of what tools were available to help companies solve cyber risk. I knew that they couldn't solve that risk until they couldn't eliminate the risk. However, they could eliminate the cost of it. And that's, of course, where insurance and risk transfer became a critical component. And, here I am today in the insurance industry. Certainly not something I would have thought after working at Microsoft, CIA or anywhere else.
Well, yeah, so going off that, obviously Coalition offers a variety of products and services, with insurance just being one of them. Could you talk a little bit about your product and entirely what Coalition is offering to its customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So our mission is to solve cyber risk. And by solving cyber risk, I don't mean solving cybersecurity failure. Things will fail and bad things will happen to good companies. Solving cyber risk for us means working with our clients to prevent that exposure before it happens. And so that's using data and technology in a very novel way, and making that available for free to our clients, right? So democratizing access to cybersecurity technologies, right? And that's one of the greatest barriers, particularly for small and medium businesses, is that these technologies are expensive, and therefore they're not being used. So we work with our clients to prevent. During an incident, we have an on-staff team of forensics and incident responders, as well as privacy attorneys, who can work with our clients, again, outside of their policy retention, outside of the limit, to help put out the fire, so to speak. So in every sense of the word, we are 911 for our customers. And then, of course, after an incident, we have built, what we believe is one of, if not the most comprehensive insurance policies in this space, with up to 10 million limits to help businesses recover financially to where they were before the bad thing happened, if you will. So it's really a before, during, and after approach. And it's doing so in a way where our incentives are aligned with our customers, right? We are fierce defenders of our customers because we have a significant financial interest in making sure that we're not paying out insurance claims unnecessarily.
Right. So yeah, you mentioned that Coalition offers up to 10 million in coverage. So that being said, who's your target customer, and does Coalition have any plans to move upstream?
Yeah. So today we focus on small and medium businesses in the United States, and so we sort of arbitrarily define that as 250 million in revenue and below. And there's an estimated 29.5 million companies just in the United States that are sort of within our box, if you will, our underwriting box, and we write all of them, right? Every industry, every size, one employee, thousands of employees, and I would say in the future, while we're very much focused on serving this market, and we think that risk transfer is the solution for cybersecurity, the solution for cyber risk management for small business in particular. We do have plans to expand, outside of the United States. We also have plans to again expand more solidly into the middle market as well.
So Josh, you've mentioned that Coalition's policy goes well beyond just covering for traditional cyber loss. I know you've mentioned pollution and other areas. Can you expand on kind of what you're offering in when it comes to your insurance product?
Right, absolutely, yeah. So look, we think of cyber as a form of peril, right? And so what are the different loss types that can arise as the result of either a technology failure or a security failure? And what many people don't realize is that everything is a computer these days, right? Like our thermostats are computers, our tea kettles are computers, certainly our planes, trains, and automobiles. And if these things can fail, you can have very real life consequences. Pollution, bodily injury, property damage. These are things that we are able to affirmatively cover on our form. There's also some interesting gaps that as practitioners and having lived and seen thousands of different cyber incidents, we were able to create coverages for those. So, for example, many companies will face malware attacks, right? And that malware will often corrupt data and even the firmware on that computer. Of course, it stops short of actually setting the computer on fire. And so there is no property coverage if you want to replace your computer system, right? Because there's no tangible damage. But meanwhile, traditional cyber insurance policies don't cover that, right? And so we affirmatively provide coverage for computer replacement. Reputational loss, it's an intangible that can often be difficult to cover. Like we will affirmatively cover the consequential reputational harm to a business. And so, we also have attempted to evolve because criminals have evolved. And so, we're the first market to offer service fraud coverage. And so, if now that businesses are using third-party services, cloud services, software as a service, everything as a service, that's a very attractive target for a criminal to take your resources and use them. So using your computational power to mine Bitcoin or crypto assets, that's a very common form of fraud. Not covered on most cyber insurance policies, but that's another area we've been able to react. So it's just how do we continuously innovate and continuously make sure that we're covering the exposures that real companies are facing.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned, several things there, and business interruption comes to mind. How do y'all price around something this intangible like reputational damage or business interruption?
Yeah, it certainly can be a challenge, and that's where, I think from a claims perspective, it's very important to have a dedicated in-house capability to perform forensic level analysis, to understand exactly how an attack affected a company. And so in our case, it's how do we ensure the consequential loss of net income as the result of a diminishment in reputation. And so that obviously involves looking deep into the company's financials, forensically looking at exactly what happened and how it impacted the company, and then making an assessment. And so it's definitely that part of cyber insurance is certainly more art than science at this point, but we're attempting to inject as much science as we possibly can.
Right. Very, very interesting. And so Coalition also obviously has a very different strategy, combining front-end cyber services, a cyber insurance product, all the way to post-breach response.
Right.
Would you say that's your main differentiator? Like how would Coalition really differentiate itself from its competitors?
Yeah, I certainly think that it really depends on who do you consider our competitors, right? And in some sense, our competition is the cybersecurity industry, right? And so I think we've differentiated ourselves by truly solving a problem, right? Where, if I were to sell you some sort of device to protect your network and it failed, as a technology company, I have next to no liability. I'm not going to help pay for your business interruption losses or the forensics costs. In this case, we have delivered a radically different solution for this problem. If you sort of think of competitors as, other insurance companies, I think a lot of the innovation is using data in a way that others have not been able to do, right? Okay. And so providing risk assessments, providing these services, and leveraging our collection to solve what is a joint problem, right? Both the broker and Coalition have an interest in managing risk for the client. And I think what we've been innovative at is building tools for brokers to do that, like to do their jobs better, if you will.
So you've mentioned, kind of going off that, Coalition is a licensed broker in all 50 states.
Right.
And I believe you're writing on Swiss Re and Argo paper?
That's correct, yeah.
So what about, where are you primarily placing this? Is it through the admitted markets or excess and surplus lines?
Yeah, so today we are in the non-admitted market, and so all of our policies are non-admitted, although we are working on an admitted product and have made a substantial amount of progress on that front, and that will be on Swiss Re's admitted paper.
Great. So yeah, as a licensed MGA, Coalition has the capability to rate, quote, bind, the whole process in a matter of minutes.
Right.
Can you speak to the role that data plays in this process, where you're getting the data, as well as just Coalition's underlying technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fortunately, we live at a time where there is more data than there ever has been in all of human history, and that amount is only increasing day by day. And so while, there's often, oftentimes the remarks are made that, there's not enough data to underwrite this risk, when in reality there's an enormous amount of data.
Right.
It's just how do you go about collecting it? And so that's fortunately a problem that, having come from the technology industry, having come from the intelligence world and the signals intelligence world, we have a great deal of experience with. And so instead of building a signals intelligence system for the purposes of, the national defense or espionage or whatnot, we've repurposed it for underwriting insurance, as attractive as that is. And so, it's a very large collection mechanism for all information that's on the internet, right? We want to look at our customers, at our policyholders, just like a real-life cyber criminal would. We also want to look at them and look for different points of failure, architectural weakness, where a technological disruption, one that perhaps has nothing to do with a security failure, could also create significant loss.
So while we're on the topic of technology and differentiation, do you have any patents on your algorithms or other proprietary information? In general, what's Coalition's competitive advantage here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, most of what we have built would probably be better classified as a trade secret than something that was truly something we would want to patent. Interestingly enough, when we file a patent, you're revealing quite a bit of information about what it is you're patenting. So there's a couple things that we're working on, but by and large, our competitive advantage is a data advantage, right? It's whoever has the most data and the greatest ability to execute and act upon that data has a sustained competitive advantage, right? And so, we obviously have somewhat of a first mover advantage, as if you were to think about what we're doing as a brand new type of product, and the more customers and the more data that we gather continue to create that advantage. I think the other thing is as a business, we think about how do we commoditize our complements. So the democratization of cybersecurity technology, that's something that, we believe will be disruptive in the cybersecurity market, which is things that used to cost money, we will provide for free. And it's in the public's interest to do that. And largely the reason we're able to do that is because we are an insurance provider, right? Like, we've been able to liberate ourselves from the technology business model of data monetization, because we have an insurance business model, and so we're able to give the data away for free. So there's a whole host of things that I think that we can do, and a lot of it's just innovation. It's creating a culture of innovation. It's talent. It's building a team of, building an insurance company. I don't know what the future insurance company will look like, but in our case, 65% of our team are software engineers.
Yeah.
So I think these are all things that give us a competitive advantage for some time, but the world is changing very quickly, and we'll have to react as well.
Right. So yeah, on the topic of automation and streamlining this rate, quote, bind process,
Yeah.
Do you believe any part of the rate, quote, and bind process cannot be replaced by technology that's totally dependent on the human?
Our experience is that, all of the the only part that is hard to replace without a human in this case is really sort of the function of a very good broker, right? It's someone who innately understands the client, the company, what's important to them, their business model, what assets they have, and then that also understands how the insurance product functions. And so, I don't think we're going to be replacing that anytime soon. And we're for an insurtech company, we're somewhat different in that we exclusively work through brokers. Like, we believe that this needs to be a broker transaction. What we can do, however, is take all the other administrative things when it comes to rating, quoting, and binding that cause everyone pain, and we can automate all of those, right? And we can make it very simple. And I'd say that's something that we're constantly improving at, but we have great feedback from brokers on, hey, if you could only do this, and we love that. We love that feedback.
So yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things that you explained to me is, you have underwriting authority, yet you don't have any underwriters.
Right.
Which is just
Yeah,
fascinating.
in the traditional sense, certainly.
Absolutely. So, well, yeah. So going off that, you mentioned that you're selling through brokers.
Right.
So those are essentially your broker partners. Why did
Yeah.
Coalition choose this route, and have you ever thought about going direct?
Yeah, I mean, we're very much committed, to what I would refer to as a B2B2B model, so business to business to business.
Right.
And part of it is, our expertise. Like, we are technologists, right? Like, we want to build a great insurance product. We want to build a great technology product, and we are a product-focused company, right? And we're obsessed about that. We also have to recognize what we aren't, right? We are not, like the sales and marketing machine and engine, and it requires, a remarkable amount of capital to do that. Also, kind of going back to the prior question, cyber insurance is complicated. There's no two policies that are the same, and so, working with a broker, I think, is very important for a company, right? I think I think it's possible maybe for smaller companies, and there certainly is a segment of the market that's underserved because it's hard for a broker to profitably serve a micro business. But with that said, we've been very committed to working with brokers, and it's really given us, I think, an edge in terms of the ability to scale the platform, the ability to get data and collect that faster than we otherwise would have. So it's been compelling for us.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your leadership structure, and then you talked about a culture of innovation.
Sure.
So a couple things off that. How does your background change your approach to cyber insurance versus the traditional insurance executive? And then secondly, would you say there's a clear distinction between your tech-focused employees versus the ones who come from an insurance background?
Yeah. I mean, I think of it as, we're very first principles oriented. And so by first principles, it's, let's identify a problem. And in this case, it was, the failure of cybersecurity to actually secure most companies. And, how do we strip that down to its core and understand how to approach this problem differently, right? Because very clearly what's been happening in the cybersecurity industry, while in some cases effective, has not solved the problem. And that's where, I didn't start off at the onset of building this company with the desire to go into insurance, right? Okay. Insurance sort of was the output of that process, of that first principles thinking of how do we fundamentally solve this. So that was certainly a big component. We also, I kind of use the term the job to be done. Whenever building a company, you need to understand what is the job your customer is trying to do, right? Okay. If they buy your product or they use your service, I think of it as they're hiring us to perform a service. Mm-hmm. So how do we help them do that job better? Whether that's a broker, whether that's a policy holder. And so, if you can really latch on to first principles thinking and the job to be done, you can oftentimes find novel solutions to problems that had never been thought of before. And I think one of our strengths as we've thought about staffing the business is we want to be very careful about hiring people who are so ingrained into the way things have always been done, mm-hmm. because it's impossible to innovate, right? Their first instinct and reaction is naturally to go back to what they know. And so by really bringing together this motley crew, if you will, literally, of people who've come out of the intelligence community, out of the insurance world, out of the technology world, we have all been able to kind of put our heads together and do things that have just never before been done or seen by the brokers that we're working with. So it's been great, and I think it's important that we continue to catalyze that, right? Because mm-hmm. it's hard for any company as it grows to keep that innovative spirit, right?
So yeah, going off that growth, can you speak to your firm's current business strategy? I mean, you've been on our radar for some time now, and you've experienced tremendous growth trajectory over the past, I believe, 9 months or so. Yeah. Especially compared to other players in the space. How has Coalition dealt with this and scaled along with your current growth?
Yeah, I've certainly not gotten as much sleep, I think, recently. but no, I mean, we've been humbled by how quickly the company has grown, but we also continue to be humbled by the magnitude of the task in front of us, and so. I think it's really, it's having a purpose. Like, mm-hmm. we are very focused on what it is that we want to achieve. We are very focused on doing anything we can to help our customers, and we are going to continue to innovate in that space and continue to grow. I think the other is, again, continuing to advance, like, how do we better understand how we can help brokers, right? How can we help them to help us, in sort of is maybe the Jerry Maguire way to say it. But, I think we've been able to do very interesting things there, right? So because we have been able to automate underwriting, because, we automate almost the entire process of the rate quote bind issuance process, that opens up a lot of interesting business opportunities for our partners. So for example, they can now bulk quote like their entire renewal book, right? They can bulk quote their entire book if they want, and put in their producer's hands, a quotation of insurance that they can attempt to sell. So there's a lot of innovative things that we've been able to do as a result of some of the technological innovation and features we've built.
Gotcha. Well, I want to end on a big picture question and looking into the future. So,
Sure.
So what do you think Coalition's biggest opportunity lies going forward, and what are your current priorities in terms of where you expect to be in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah. So when I say humbled by the magnitude of the task in front of us, we're very fortunate to have thousands and thousands of customers at this point, but there are 29.5 million companies in the United States that have under 250 million in revenue, kind of the threshold that we're currently operating within, and so we've hardly scratched the surface. So, I think the biggest opportunity for us, over the next 12 to 18 months will be how can we more closely work with our distribution partners and access the millions of companies that neither of us are currently working with, right? And so you'll start to see some interesting things that we do in that space, but I don't want to give any spoilers.
Well, we'll stay tuned. And well, Josh, it was a pleasure speaking with you, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us for CouncilCast. And on behalf of the council, we're really excited to see what's in store for you guys, and looking forward to a bright future, I'm sure. Again, this is CouncilCast. Be sure to tune in next time and follow us on Twitter at the CIAB. Thanks again.